Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and it is time for Friday Reads. It is September 1st. For once, I know what day it is because it is September 1st. And fall is not here, but it's still September 1st, and it's time to enjoy all of these September events. So it is, for me, the big one I'm going to do is Shorty September. And so you will start seeing my posts about the story of the day, and about every 5 or 6 stories I'll put out a video discussing those stories as well. So if you want to join in on any of them, one of them, all of them, none of them, you do you, but that's starting today. So what else is going on? Well, let's see. We did find a TV show that we are enjoying. So we are still watching Only Murders in the Building of Reservation Dogs, and I'm getting kind of sad because Reservation Dogs is going to end this month forever, and I don't know, but it's happening. But we did find another show that we've been watching over this past week, and maybe I'm the last person that ever found this show, but it's called How To with John Wilson, and it's on the channel formerly known as HBO Max. And I found this show because there's this little weekly thing that comes out on Fridays on NPR's website. So how nerdy is this already? But there's this thing that it's like what we are watching and reading and listening to, little weekly thing where staffers make recommendations. And somebody mentioned this show, and so we started watching it. And if you have not seen it, it's kind of a documentary style. There's this guy, John Wilson, who lives in New York, and he goes around with his camera, and every episode has kind of an umbrella topic, but there's lots of digressions and connections. So like there's an episode called How to Make Risotto, and it's about when he wants to make risotto for his landlady because she's always making him food, and she does his laundry and all this ridiculous stuff, and he has all these struggles trying to make the risotto, and it branches off. It starts there, but it ends up being about the beginning of the pandemic in New York City. Like another time he's talking about how to split checks and all the things people do to avoid, either they're angry about the fairness, and then he starts thinking about referees, and he goes to a really acrimonious Christmas dinner of referees. And I mean, just it starts in one place and then it travels, and somehow it links back together, and it has this really excellent editing of just things out on the streets in New York City. So it's funny, it's kind of offbeat, and I like it. And I think I decided the reason why I like it is because the way it moves through a topic is like my brain. When I think about a topic and then I get on a side trail and I research this, and then I go read that, and then I think about something else, and then it reminds me of this other thing, and then I'm over here like that. That's how I think, and it's like a show on a topic, kind of like probably how I would make a show, or if you could see a trail in my mind of me thinking about a topic. So anyway, it's called How To, and I like it. All right, but let's talk about the books. When I left off last week, I can't remember if I was almost finished with Tom Lake or halfway through Tom Lake. I know I was reading Tom Lake, and I did finish reading Tom Lake, and I really loved Tom Lake. I haven't heard of anyone yet say they didn't like it, but I don't go looking for bad reviews, and most of the people that I watch and read have similar taste to mine, so we all like Tom Lake, but I'm sure somebody out there doesn't like it. So if you have not yet read this, and I also have heard several times that the audiobook is excellent and read by Meryl Streep. So how would she mess it up? But that's a great choice for this book. I'm not an audiobook aficionado myself because aforementioned wandering brain, but it sounds good. But anyway, I read this, my print copy, and it is the story of a woman named Laura who has 3 young adult daughters that are in their early 20s, and she lives on a fruit orchard in Michigan with her husband, and they farm this fruit orchard, and it is cherry picking time. It is the summer of 2020, and her 3 daughters are all at home because of the pandemic. 2 of them have come home from college, and the other one is already finished with college, and she lives on the farm permanently because she wants to farm the farm. That's what she does, and lives on a little property there. And so they are picking cherries. The cherries have come in, but their seasonal workers are not here this year, so they are all frantically working long days trying to get the cherry harvest picked. And so to pass the time, the girls asked their mother to tell them the story about her summer when she had a love affair with a later on famous actor named Peter Duke. So when Laura was in her early 20s, one summer she she played Emily in Our Town at a summer stock production at Tom Lake. Funny side story, Stephen thought that Tom Lake was somebody. Like when I said something about, I started talking about the book, and he's like, wait a minute, what? I said, he didn't know it was Tom Lake, like a place called Tom Lake. He was thinking that the book, that title was like, there's like someone named Tom Lake in the story. And I was like, oh yeah, I can see how you would think that. But no, it's a lake in Michigan that has a summer stock production. And in order to tell this story, and the girls already know that when their mom was young, one summer she dated this guy who went on to become a famous actor back before she married their dad. And they've seen some of this guy's movies, and it's just sort of like a story they know, but they don't know the details. And they find out that they had kind of the timeline and the events pretty much wrong. Not because she ever told it to them wrong, but because she just never told it. They never really heard anything more than, oh, one summer she dated him. So she begins to tell the story, and she's got to go backwards to when she was in high school, because she first has to explain her connection to the play Our Town, which is important for what happens. And then she goes on to tell the story about this summer. She doesn't tell everything to the girls. The readers, we get details and entire events that she leaves out of the version that she tells her daughters. They get enough of it to get a good picture of what happened. And, you know, there's a comment somewhere in the story that the story of a bad love affair or something that ended badly is a more exciting story than a happy love story. And really you get both of those kind of stories in here, really. So you can take your pick. Plot-wise, that's what it's about. But theme-wise, it's about different kinds of love that you fall into, and it's about memory, it's about time, it's about figuring out who you are, and it's about taking stock, not summer stock, but actual life stock later on at what you have, what you lost, how you feel about it, the choices that you've made. And it's interesting, her daughters have different perspectives and different kinds of questions and different judgments about this story that she tells. And one thing that I found kind of curious in here is that one of the 3 daughters is studying acting, and they don't talk very much about this. So the oldest daughter works the farm, and we get a lot about her. We get about some things about her personality, which is kind of a tricky personality. And we get some information about the middle daughter, who is almost finished with her veterinarian studies. But then the youngest one is the one who's the most, Nell, she's the most out of sorts, because being sent home from college as an actor, there's really nothing for her to do. Maisie can help some of the neighboring farms with some animal issues because she's far enough in her training to lend a hand. And Emily already works there, but Nell is just kind of high and dry as far as the acting. And the story itself of Laura's brief acting career and her choice to not continue it kind of drives Nell up the wall. But what we don't get is anything about Nell's actual acting. We know that she's frustrated, but I thought it was kind of weird that Laura never makes any comment about how she feels about Nell pursuing this, or being surprised or not surprised when Nell developed this interest, or are going to see her in any plays, or whether she's any good. So I thought that was kind of a weird omission, that we don't really know much about Nell as an actor. But whatever, that's just a little caveat. But overall, I just really loved it. There's just little moments in here. She's so, Ann Patchett is so in control of this plot and this character development, just trying to explain to her daughters why things that are so exciting at one point in life are just not. It's not that you gave them up, it's just that you want different things at different times. Just secrets, the things you decide to keep private, and the things that you share. And then she's kind of realizing and looking at her daughters that they are now at that point in life too, that they are obviously have secrets and things that they're not going to share with her as well. Anyway, it's just a lovely novel. And as soon as I started reading it, I put in a request for Our Town at the library, because I realized that it's so essential in this book, and it's very important to Ann Patchett as well. She says something in the afterword, or where does she say it? This is an author's note. I thank Thornton Wilder, who wrote the play that has been an enduring comfort, guide, and inspiration throughout my life. If this novel has a goal, it is to turn the reader back to Our Town and to all of Wilder's work. Therein lies the joy. So I didn't see that note, but it's until I got to the end. But when I was at the beginning, I put in a request, and the library did not rustle that up fast enough. So I happened to be at Half Price Books a couple days later, and I found a copy of Our Town, this nice little 60s copy, and I had to read this immediately upon finishing Tom Lake. And I also want to watch the production that I know is on YouTube with Spalding Gray, and that particular production plays a role in the book as well. And you can see I marked it all up, because as I read the play, I saw the echoes of, I don't know, the echoes or the strings or the binding planes or something between the two books. And I don't feel as strongly. I mean, I know that I read and saw this as a younger person, and I was familiar with it. It didn't stick with me that strongly as it does with Ann Patchett, but I did read it with a new appreciation. And I think as a person who's more mature now, the sad parts are sadder, and I did see some direct thematic. Why can't I talk today? I don't know. The two things go together. That's what I'm trying to say. And specifically, here's a specific example. So this is when they are describing, this is when George and Emily are going to fall in love, and the stage manager says, "But before they do it, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young. And particularly the days when you were first in love, when you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were in, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You're just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please?" And that, I found, directly echoes Laura's description of when she met Peter Duke. And she says, "This is a story about Peter Duke, who went on to be a famous actor. This is a story about falling in love with Peter Duke, who wasn't famous at all. It's about falling so wildly in love with him the way one will at 24 that it felt like jumping off a roof at midnight. There was no way to foresee the mess that it would come to in the end, nor did it occur to me to care." So things like that, really, the two pieces reverberate together. So I do recommend that you read or reread Our Town, either before or after you read Tom Lake. But I really loved that little reading adventure. I actually do have this Thornton Wilder collection that is, there's some fiction and nonfiction in here. And honestly, when I thought, oh, I want to read Our Town, I spied this across the room and I thought, oh, good. And then it wasn't in there. So I bought this copy. But this is one of those hide in plain sight books that's just been sitting. It's a former library book. And it was not crossing my mind in any way, shape, or form to feel like reading anything by Thornton Wilder. But now I'm kind of curious. So if you have a favorite Thornton Wilder book or a recommendation other than Our Town, I'm all ears, because I wasn't thinking about Thornton Wilder at all till I read this book. Okay, so that was the big excitement in the reading world of my life this week, was this whole immersion into Tom Lake and Our Town. So after I finished that, I really had a craving to read a palate cleanser, something kind of fast-paced and thrilling and adventurous. And so I picked up The Ferryman by Justin Cronin. Also, it's like the opposite of a Shorty September book, but luckily I finished it last night. So the coast is clear for the short books now. Stephen read this, I don't know, earlier this summer, and he really liked it. So this is a science fiction, dystopian novel. It's a thriller. It's one of those fast-paced ones you just keep on reading and don't overthink it. It's too big to keep holding, so let me just tell you what it's about. This is a book that employs a number of science fiction tropes, some of which I can't tell you about because it would ruin surprises of the plot. But it's a dystopian world. Everyone is living in two places. And it's kind of an island community with a connecting piece. So the main island is Prospera, and this is where the more wealthy and elite people live. They are all adults. Well, they're teenagers and adults. So they live there. They don't actually have children physically, which is shades of Brave New World. But if they want to be parents, they receive a teenager. And what happens is in this culture is that when you get to a certain age and you are deemed to be elderly and you are starting to kind of wind down, you are supposed to voluntarily go on this ferry. And this is, instead of officially dying, you get what they call reiterated, which you basically get kind of upcycled. Your old memory is gone and you get upcycled into, your body gets upcycled into being a fresh teenager. And then the teenagers come and they get taken in as wards by married couples. So those people grow up and go to university, get jobs, and live their life. And the lifespans are really long. They're over 100 years. The people just stay very young and fit, and they're monitored by this device that's inserted in their arm for their health conditions. And then that island is connected to this other part called the Annex. And here's your shades of 1984. That's where the proles live, the service industry people, and all the infrastructure worker type people live in the Annex, and they have kids the old fashioned way, and that's, the rougher, dirtier kind of area. And so at the beginning of the story, there's a guy named Proctor who is a ferryman, which means he escorts the old people off the island when it's time to go. And at the beginning of the story, his own father asks him to be his ferryman because his time has come. Something goes really sideways at the time of that ferry ride, and that starts all the events in place. Not in place. They go out of place because everything goes haywire. So the other thing about Proctor is that he has very vivid dreams and he sleepwalks, which is not normal in this society. Nobody really has dreams. Every now and then they have a funny feeling that's like an echo, and that's supposed to be because of little residual pieces of the former person that their body got recycled from. So anyway, it's one of those books. The tropes I can tell you about are like the stratified societies, and the idea right from the beginning that they don't know everything that's going on. Things are not as they seem. Something's about to kind of, some kind of rupture is about to occur. And then there's a few other things that I can't really tell you. but it was pretty good. It gets confusing at times because well, I can't even tell you that, but it's one of those ones if you just keep, like, the characters themselves are also confused. It's supposed to be disorienting at times, and then, but it's mostly very action packed. Just don't linger on anything too long, and it actually went very fast. Even though it looks like a big old honker, it kind of flew through, and it was fun. So if you like action, dystopian, science fiction, thriller kind of thing, every now and then I recommend The Ferryman. So that was it, because I lingered and savored Tom Lake and Our Town, and then I read this Thrill Ride. So that's it for my reading this week. And now I'm ready to start in on my short novels and a couple other books that are themed for this month, like A Passage to India. And so I'm probably going to pick up Foster first. I've read it last year. But I wanted to reread it before I make my final decision on my BookTube prize rankings. So I think I'm going to read this today, tomorrow, or I don't know. It'll probably just take one day. And then I can mull over my rankings. And I will eventually have a video about my final ranking decisions and my overall experience with being a BookTube judge, and that will be released around the beginning of October, once the judging window is closed. But that's it for me. What did you read this week? Have you read Tom Lake, or do you want to? Anything else that you are excited about, let me know, and I will be back again on Tuesday. So see you soon. Bye.